Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Veramed Stories podcast. I'm your host, Himesh. With PSI around the corner, this week's episode we'll be talking to two of my colleagues who are attending PSI to talk a bit more about what they're presenting and what Veramed's involvement is this year. So please join me in welcoming first-time guest to the podcast, Toby. Toby, hello and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Himesh. Happy to be here.
And someone who needs no introduction for our long-time listeners, welcome back to the podcast, Ian.
Thanks very much, Himesh. It is great to finally be back on the podcast as a guest this time rather than hosting. And I have to say, you've done a fantastic job of hosting since you took over from me. So yeah, keep up the good work. And I'm really excited to talk about PSI this time.
Well, thank you very much. I feel a bit under pressure, like now the tables have turned, but we'll see how we get on. Right, let's start off. So Toby, what are you presenting at this year's conference?
So I'm presenting on Tuesday in the session on dose-finding innovations, which is, for me, it's focusing on phase 1 dose toxicity for oncology studies, which doesn't sound very exciting on the face of it, but I find it quite exciting because I think oncology studies these days are highly adaptive, and I think the data we get in is very interesting. And obviously, cancer is something that it's a horrible disease that if we can find new therapies that are doing something good, that's very, very exciting. And phase 1 is our first chance to see that. And my focus really on my talk is about what's changed in oncology therapies, and that is immunotherapy. That's kind of what's new. I say it's new. It's been around for about 10 years, but it's a slow-moving industry, so it's relatively new. And the thing is that despite the fact that the type of therapy that we're using now for cancers is very different, the mechanism is very different, and the safety profiles are very different, we're designing the studies in the same way. We're testing dose toxicity in the same way. And I just don't think that makes sense. So that's really the focus of my talk is and I present a different type of study design, which sort of hopefully takes into account some of the factors that affect the safety profile and make it different for these immunotherapy drugs, and just to get people thinking about how to design these studies a bit differently as much as anything.
Wow, that sounds very interesting. Is this your sort of first conference you've been to, or have you been to other conferences before?
This will be the third conference I've been to. It'll be the first time I presented. The previous two I did posters. It was a while ago. The last one I went to, I had to look it up. It was 2015. And then I think I went, and that was in London as well. And I went to one in Glasgow, which I think was probably 2013. And I think it's changed quite a bit since then. Certainly it's gotten a lot bigger. The amount of sort of parallel talks that are being done now is a lot more than it was then. I think they're expecting about 600 people this year. So that's a lot more than when I went before. So it's third time I've been, but it's going to be a completely different experience.
Yeah, no, definitely. And how do you feel about the prospect of presenting in front of potentially 600 odd people?
Well, fortunately, it's parallel sessions. I think it's about 5 parallel sessions. So hopefully it's going to be a lot less than 600 unless it's really popular, because that would be quite terrifying. But I mean, I'm nervous about it because it's the first time I've done it, and it's sort of standing in front of a group of people. But I'm passionate about what I'm talking about. So I'm looking forward to covering that. I think it's interesting and it's thought-provoking, and hopefully people appreciate it.
No, absolutely. And Ian, how about yourself? What are you presenting this year?
So I'm presenting something which is completely different to what Toby is presenting on. And it's actually quite a nice reflection of how Toby and I are completely different statisticians. So Toby's talking about a technical topic, which, to be honest, is the vast majority of the types of presentations you'll get at PSI. But I'm actually talking in a session which is called a non-technical TED Talk session. So they're bringing in this new idea of having these TED Talks, or TED-style talks that they call it. It's a brand new thing for PSI, which means it's a big deal, which means I'm very nervous to be a part of it because I want to get it right. But yeah, I'll only be talking for 7 to 8 minutes, and it's on the Wednesday afternoon, so quite late into the conference, which can be good or can be bad. Is a long time to wait all the 3 days to complete until it's your time to come. But yeah, my talk is titled "I Want to Fail," which sounds like a bit of an odd title. What it is. The idea is to present the idea that failure is actually something that we should embrace rather than fear. You learn more from your failures than you do your successes. This talk would be useful for those that are particularly early in their career, perhaps 5 years or less experience. Also be good for line managers, especially if you're line managing career young statisticians. Hopefully this will be useful for them. When I last went to PSI in 2017, it was quite a technical conference, and that was the one thing I was like, I was a bit overwhelmed by it all these different presentations with formulas all over the screen and long words and stuff that I didn't really understand, if I'm being honest. So I'm really pleased that PSI have taken a positive step to bring in these soft skills type topics, which I'm really happy to be contributing to this year.
Yeah, again, that sounds very different from Toby's, but again, very interesting as well. So was this talk sort of inspired from you taking on more sort of line management responsibilities over the last year or two?
Yeah, so I've been a line manager since 2018, and the vast majority of that experience has been line managing new graduates. And there was one thing that all the graduates kind of have in common, and they're absolutely all petrified of getting things wrong. They're scared of failure. So I've kind of seen firsthand what this looks like. And then as a line manager, I've had to kind of guide them on that journey, and that's kind of what inspired this talk.
And did you feel when you first became a line manager, were you also scared to fail as a line manager?
Oh, 100%. I think whenever you do anything for the first time, I think that's the point. It being afraid to fail is okay, but it's kind of like going through the process of failing. So you experience something for the first time, and then after you've done it for the first time, you take an opportunity to learn and reflect, and then you implement that next time. I'm basically giving you the whole talk right now, by the way. I don't need to do the PSI anymore. Everyone can just listen to this podcast episode, and everything I'm going to say has already been covered. But yeah, no, absolutely. When I first started line managing, you always get this silly voices in your head like, oh, what if they don't think you're any good, or what if you're not really helping them, or what if you get assigned some really horrible reports. Thankfully, I've been incredibly lucky. All the people that I've ever had to manage have been amazing. But yeah, whenever you do anything for the first time, it's natural to feel like, oh, goodness me, this is difficult. I was in the Lake District on the weekend. I tried wakeboarding. Like, I was petrified, absolutely petrified. I can't say I was any good, and I'm not sure I'll be implementing it again in the future. But yeah, the general idea is that, yeah, you do things for the first time, you're not going to get it perfectly, and that's okay.
No, definitely. And I've definitely listened to and read things from many world-class athletes, and they've all said the same thing. They've learned most from the races or fights or whatever they lost than they did from any of their wins. And it's just a big learning curve. But again, the best thing for you is never a straight journey up, is it? There's always ups and downs, and the more downs you have, the higher ups you'll get. Right. So 2 very different and very interesting talks there. How many other people from Veramed are attending, and what other sort of posters and presentations are they presenting?
Yeah, so we have a massive representation at the conference this year, largely due to its location. So it's in Hammersmith this year, which is conveniently quite close to our UK employees, in particular those in the Twickenham office. So I believe at its maximum we have, I want to say 12 people going. I really should have known that information before coming on to this episode, so I do apologize. Basically, we have a lot of people going on the Monday. The reason for that is it has the poster session, and I'll tell you who we have presenting a poster soon. But also it's when we have some keynote sessions to go to, and also we have the Career Young Statistician session. So the Monday, in terms of technical content, is really good. And if you're going to only go for one day, it's definitely the best day to go. In terms of other talks that we have, so we have two speakers that are actually presenting in the Career Young Statistician session, which I talked about. So we have Sarah Robson. So she is giving a talk titled Animations in R, the Dark Horse of Data Visualization. So it's as the title suggests, a data visualization type topic, but taking one step further and using animations to present clinical data, which is becoming way more common in modern biostatistics. Also, a shout out to Hugh Wilson there, who's been helping out an awful lot with the preparation for Sarah's talk. And then the other person we have is Alexander Luo. So he is giving a talk which is titled Remove Your Bias, MCMC Algorithms to Set You on the Right Path. This is fantastic for Alex because he is just a graduate that's joined Veramed last year. So to have an abstract accepted for oral presentation in your first year of your career at Veramed is a fantastic achievement. And I hope that he's really looking forward to presenting as part of the talk. Finally, we have Gwen. Gwen Perry will be presenting a poster. This is titled Frailty Models Beyond the Standard Parametric Survival Model. So this is a topic which Gwen studied in depth as part of her dissertation for her master's in statistics. And as part of the poster presentation, you actually need to get on stage and talk about your poster for 1 minute, which is titled Gone in 60 Seconds. Whoever came up with that probably deserves some sort of prize. But yeah, you've got 1 minute to basically tell everyone, come and have a look at my poster. I haven't actually been, I think this is quite a new thing. Last time I went to PSI, this wasn't a thing. So I'm really excited to see how this works. From reviews of others that have been in the past, they have said it's quite an entertaining session to go to.
Right. So nice, strong representation from Veramed there. You mentioned some of the keynote speakers. Toby, is there any sort of keynote speakers or any other talk in general that you're sort of looking forward to seeing while you're also there?
Well, yeah, there's loads really this year. I mean, I think the content is fantastic. I mean, it's full 3 days this year, and previously I've always known it as sort of 2.5 days, but I think it's a very new thing that they've gone for the full 3 days. It's probably just because they've got so much good stuff. But first keynote speaker is Demandra Harkness, who I believe probably a lot of people will be familiar with, not through clinical trials because she works outside clinical trials, but she's sort of writes columns in newspapers and she appears on the radio quite a bit. I think she also does some stand-up comedy. So, probably a very interesting and very entertaining talk that she does, I expect. And Andy Grieve as well, who is very well known within the industry, does a lot of trainings within the industry. I know one of my line reports did a training with Andy very recently. So incredibly knowledgeable, very experienced, and again someone who will no doubt deliver a great talk. So very much looking forward to those. And a few other things that just jumped out at me are there's a session on, I think it's Monday afternoon, on use of external data, Bayesian borrowing, so sort of historical controls, and that's something that is becoming a hotter and hotter topic at the moment. So I'm really keen to go to that one to see what others are doing on that at the moment. And there's another session, I think, the Tuesday on adaptive design, which I think again it's a very hot topic. Looking forward to that. But honestly, I mean, for most of these parallel sessions, I could pick 2 or 3 that I could easily go to. And I think, Ian, I'm glad there's so many of us going because we can tactically cover as much as possible, can't we?
It's like going to a music festival and all of your favorite bands are playing at the same time. That is kind of what it feels like. I keep going through the schedule and changing my mind of which sessions I'm going to go to. But yes, Toby makes a good point in that with there being so many of us going from Veramed, we will probably have to tactically spread ourselves apart to make sure that we're soaking up as much knowledge as possible to improve our work going forward. So we won't all be going to the same session, apart from, of course, the keynote sessions.
Yeah, it sounds like a very busy conference this year, full 3 days, like you mentioned, and all these parallel sessions. So, yeah, I can imagine being very hard to like pick the ones you actually would like to go to. So, obviously, as well as all these talks, posters, and everything like that, there's actually a social aspect to PSI. Ian, would you like to sort of explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, so this was actually the aspect that I enjoyed the most when I went to the conference in 2017. Of course, as I mentioned, the learning experience of all the technical content, that was, yeah, it was useful, but it was a bit overwhelming. The bit that I enjoyed the most was the socializing. There's a lot of social events that you meet lots of other statisticians, and it's actually how I was introduced to Veramed in the first place. I met Kinsen and others that were at the conference, and they gave off such an amazing vibe about how Veramed was, that it kind of presented the idea to me that, oh, Veramed would be a great place to work. And yeah, here I am. In terms of social events this year, so they're on the Sunday night, which is the night before the conference, there's kind of like some welcome drinks type things, drinks and nibbles, which it may or may not be popular given that a lot of people probably maybe travel down on the Monday morning. So we'll see about that. Then Monday night, there's a networking event, which is at like a pub quite nearby. Also has apparently street food, which I'm not entirely sure what that means, but it sounds exciting. And then I think the highlight of the social aspect is the gala dinner. So this is where everyone gets dressed up. You have a free course sit down meal, and there's always some sort of entertainment like music or DJ. I believe last year there was an ABBA tribute band. That was because the conference was in Gothenburg in Sweden. So I don't know if we'll have some London-based tribute band this year. I'm not sure, but yeah, there is some kind of entertainment put on to get people to have a good time, get to know each other, probably get a bit drunk. I can't though, because I'm talking on the Wednesday, so I need to be careful. So you certainly won't find me dancing because I won't be dancing sober. That's not anything that anybody wants to see. But yeah, there's also loads of coffee breaks, lunch breaks. There's just so much opportunity for people to go and meet other statisticians. Yeah, it's such a really friendly, collaborative environment, and yeah, I'm really, really excited for it.
Yeah, it sounds like a very exciting conference this year. And I bet a lot of people like yourselves who haven't attended conferences in a long time looking forward to it just because the sheer size of it, the amount of talks, and obviously the social and just networking and everything. And plus, we're finally back to in-person conferences, which is always nice. Obviously, we're sending a lot of people there to do talks like yourselves and posters, like you mentioned earlier. What else is Veramed involved in this year?
So yeah, there's a few things that Veramed do as part of the PSI conference, which are in line with our B Corp accreditation, which just loads of details of what B Corp is on our website. And we also did an episode on B Corp when I was hosting a while ago. So I can't believe I managed to plug one of my old episodes. That's impressive. But yeah, so we do, we've got these lanyards. So we're sponsoring the lanyards. The lanyards are sourced from recycled materials, and they're recycled each year. There's like these drop-off bins. So when people have finished at the conference, for most people that'll be the Wednesday, but maybe some people have 1 day pass, they'll drop their lanyard in these bins, and then they're washed and stored, and then they're used again the following year, obviously to help with the environment. And then as part of this year's sponsorship deal, we are helping offset the carbon footprint for the conference. What happens is this company, which is called Earthly, they calculate what the carbon footprint of the event is, and then Veramed contribute to then arrange solutions that remove carbon, restore biodiversity. So yeah, this, as I mentioned, this is a reflection of our B Corp status and the part of our ongoing strategy to inspire and educate the industry. And finally, last but definitely not least, is our booth. So we will be at the conference in the exhibitors area. We're at booth number 6. Or you won't need to look for the number because you'll spot us a mile off with our ginormous pink stand that we take to all of our conferences. It will have the words people data analysis decision on it. And we will have our famous Veramed Scrabble game, which everyone that's at the conference are more than welcome to get involved in. The highest score each day will win a £50 voucher, which you can spend at a company called Social Supermarket, who are a fellow B Corp company. So yeah, please come and say hello at our booth. You can play Scrabble, but you can also find out more about Veramed.
Excellent. Thank you very much for letting everyone know where the big booth is. It sounds like Veramed's got a massive involvement in PSI this year, like not only with our 12 people attending the conference, our presentations and posters, but obviously all our stand and the carbon off setting and lanyards and everything. So yeah, thank you, Ian and Toby, for explaining everything. So before we go, would you be able to sort of just remind our listeners what your presentation title is and when it is, so people can come and attend? Toby, we'll go with you first.
So my presentation is on Tuesday, 13th of June. It's 10:30, just after the morning break, in the Innovations in Dose Finding stream. And I'm listed last, but I'm actually coming on first. And my talk is called The New Normal for Dose Escalation Oncology Studies.
Excellent. It sounds very interesting, and good luck being your first time presenting. I'm sure you're going to do very well. Like, passion always comes through. So yeah, good luck with that, and I wish you all the best. And Ian, yourself, would you be able to remind our audience what you're presenting on and when?
Yeah, so my talk is titled I Want to Fail. I'll be presenting on the Wednesday at 1:30. So hopefully everyone's out of bed after the gala dinner by then. Hope to see lots of people there. Oh, no, not too many though. Not like 600 as we talked about earlier. That'd be way too many.
I'm sure you'll have a nice healthy number. Well, thank you both for joining me on the podcast to go more into your talks. They both sound very interesting. I wish you both good luck, and all the rest of Veramed attendees all the best as well. Thank you all very much for listening. If you'd like to be notified for any future episodes, please subscribe to us on Spotify, iTunes, or whichever podcast platform you're using. If you'd like to know more about Veramed, please visit our website at veramed.co.uk, or you can find us on LinkedIn. If you have any questions about Veramed, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to help. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at We Are Veramed. Thank you all very much for listening, and until next time, goodbye.